Here is our Walbro 990 carb that we're going to be rebuilding. This carb is off my Hpi Baja 5B, and I've ran it for many tanks on multiple engines. However, it is now starting to show some of its age, where the throttle shaft assembly has developed quite a bit of wear. Not sure if that is just the shaft itself has worn down or the actual carb assembly has started to deteriorate around the shaft. If that is the case, the only way to save this carb will be with a bearing mod. We'll have to drill this out here and stick a bearing in there. So stick around. We're going to be going through the internal assemblies, breaking this down, ultrasonically cleaning it, and putting it all back together, see how it turns out. Here is the rebuild kit that we're going to be using to do this job. It is a genuine Walbro rebuild kit, part number K10-WAT. If you're interested on picking this up yourself, I found this at a local small engine and lawnmower repair. Maybe you have one by you or you could do the same. This carburetor rebuild kit covers many carburetors. There's more parts in here than what you're actually going to need to do. But one of the carburetors that it does cover is the WT style carburetors that you would find on most of your RC engines. So go ahead and pick this up. Start taking anything apart. We're going to use a brush, and we're just going to go around the carburetor body and remove any debris, like in here where you can see there's some dry grass from running it outside. We're going to just brush all of this stuff off the car body before we start taking anything apart. So I'm going to go ahead and use my thumb to cover this hole here and my index finger to cover this hole here on the back, and just use my brush to go around the carburetor body and take any debris off. You can see there's a lot of material coming out of the sides here. All right, so now that we've done that, you can see down here there's a ton of material that actually has come off the carburetor body before we've even taken anything apart. So we're gonna clean this up and we'll be right back. I went ahead and laid out a microfiber towel here so that way when the fuel dumps out, it'll just be easier to clean up. We're gonna be using a Phillips driver number 2, and we're just gonna go around the primer bulb and remove these 4 screws here. I only run that true fuel, non-ethanol fuel through here, so that's why it has that weird coloring to it. Remove this segment of the carburetor here. We're gonna see what it actually looks like inside. Actually does not look too bad in the fuel pump area. This is the fuel metering section of the carburetor. This is where the fuel comes in here. There's a little spring that controls the metering device, similar to a float on a traditional carburetor. This is a Welsh plug. We're going to be removing this and cleaning under here and replacing this as well. I'll show you how to pop these out and how to press in a new one. Next, we're going to be going around and scraping these old gaskets off without damaging the carb body. Just use new gaskets when putting one of these on so you don't have any leaks. We're going to be using a brand new razor blade, as well as some WD-40. We're just going to spray a little bit of WD-40 onto the gasket surface, let it soak in, and then hit it with a razor. Next, we're going to be turning our attention to the actual fuel pump side of the carburetor. We're going to let it off this one Phillips screw here to expose another set of gaskets, one being a film, which is the actual fuel pump of the carburetor design. It makes back pressure against the other gasket, and that's actually what draws fuel into the upper half of the carburetor. Here you can see the exposed sections with all of the fuel passageways here. So when looking at this carburetor under the magnifier, we can see clearly that the fuel pump screen has done its job, and it's caught quite a bit of material there that has not actually gotten into the upper side of the carburetor yet. We are going to be cleaning all of this out of there. We're going to be installing a new screen provided in the rebuild kit. We might even address some of this scoring on the surface to ensure that the gasket and fuel pump have a smooth surface to seal on. Now onto the other side of this part here. It's going to have one film, which is the fuel pump. It's a very thin piece of material, extremely thin, as well as a card gasket. Trying to be very careful not to rip this. We're not going to reuse it, but it's better than having to clean up a lot of material left over on the surface if it rips. We got it off pretty clean, so we don't have to get in there and do too much cleaning afterwards. Setting these parts aside now. We'll be setting these to the side instead of throwing them out just yet, so we can compare the ones that come in the new kit to ensure that they're the same. We're now going to remove this C-clip in here, as well as removing the butterfly screw here so we can drop this rod out of the carburetor assembly. In order to remove the throttle shaft, we're going to need to use an O-ring pick like this here. And we're going to need to get inside one of these two grooves here or here, whichever one you prefer, with the O-ring pick. And being very careful not to have this jump too far out of place, we're going to just yank back lightly. Get it in there like that and just pull, and there comes your C-clip. Setting this to the side as well. With the C-clip off, we can flip the carburetor over to the butterfly side using a number 2 Phillips. We just unscrew this here and the brass valve should just fall right out. There goes the screw. We can put this over here to the side with our other parts, and the valve just comes right out. There is the valve. It's just a little brass ring. We'll set that to the side also. Next, we will need to remove this screw here, and we should have the shaft drop right out. Set this screw to the side. Remove this little eyelet. And finally, the shaft. Here's what the shaft assembly looks like. Lots of wear on the shaft assembly. You can take a closer look here. Lots and lots of wear on the shaft assembly. We might need to replace this shaft altogether. We will measure it and see if we can reuse it. If not, we will be replacing it as well. And the last two sections that need to be taken apart are going to be the fuel metering device as well as the 2 Welsh plugs that we will be punching out. So we're going to start here with this Phillips screw. Not too tight. See, the spring immediately pops up there. Careful not to lose any parts, even though we will be replacing these with new ones out of the kit. So we put this screw over to the side. We will pick this little spring up as well with the assembly. And inside of here, we have a needle, a float needle that rides on a metal seat down there, but it is not a replaceable part, the seat itself, like on regular carburetors. This is a little challenging to get these out. There we go. Here is our little needle. Let's get a better shot of this. Here we go. For the removal of the Welsh plugs, we're going to be using this little screwdriver as well as this tiny little mallet. We're just going to put the end of the screwdriver over the top of the Welsh plug and just hammer it down. Now that we have this hammered in there, we are just going to pry on it a little bit and it should release. There goes the plug. This is what it looks like. And this is what it looks like under there. I almost forgot about removing the lower screen here. This will just pick out very carefully. There we go. Now that we've covered the full disassembly of the car body, we will move on to the video on the actual ultrasonic cleaning process of the carburetor. So make sure you stay tuned for part 2.